I am typing Quentin Crisp, the writer, the raconteur. He had a one-man show. He was also like a cult icon, a gay icon, basically. He was like born in the early 1900s, like 1908 or something like that. And he basically was like one of the first like openly out people that like made a name for himself, where he like since he was like young, like a teenager, early 20s, like he pranced around, like he was openly effeminate. This was like super dangerous at the time. He got beat up all the time. He was so fucking fabulous. Anyways, I already recorded a video for this and I hooked up his type, and I don't want to edit this again because I already edited most of it. I'm not doing that again. So this is going to be messy because I'm not editing it unless I accidentally reveal like my watch list or fucking search bar or some shit. So yeah, so I had originally thought he was okay. I'll just show you what he looks like. I don't know if the Zoom is like now using all of our images for AI, but they're just still not easy to navigate. Yeah, so this is him when he was younger. There's not like a ton of photos of him when he was younger. This is not him. But this is him. He's very pretty. You can, I think, like just visually looking at him, especially once he gets like once you see him with his style, like to me what was really obvious was that he was obviously a 147 try. He just fits that archetype perfectly. It's like this aristocratic pompous sort of sparkly kind of thing, where you can just like he was a fabulous old man. I think he died around the age of 90. And he also became a woman at the end, or he had um decided that that's what he was, that's what he was. So he had like an interesting life. But yeah, you can see the one pretty clearly just in how he holds himself. Shout out to Tammy for enduring my 24-hour spiral on his type and for giving feedback, valuable feedback. So yeah, is he social self press 7? No, it doesn't work, especially for that era. Like he was so like it just no self-preservation instinct, if you will, and it was just pure fashion and beauty and magic and being himself. um I entertained 7 for a bit. I entertained 4 wing 3 for a while. His image center is very loud to me, and he does a lot of 4 in the videos. There's a lot of um I'm misunderstood, I'm separate, I'm different, like, and then he does a lot of 4 and 3 stuff that Morrissey does, where it's like the gay liberation caught up with him, and then he was like, well, AIDS is a fad, and homosexuals are a disease or something. Like he just said crazy stuff. So I can see him doing 4, I can see him doing 7, but his oneness is just undeniable. And what was so interesting to me is that because he would be then a super ego body type who was like boldly being the antithesis of what was like considered right in that era, it makes him even more interesting. And I think he's social sexual. I entertained sexual social for a bit, but the more I read about, because he fits this like peacock sort of archetype, this like he's turning himself into this piece of art, like it's more about him and his like effect on others kind of thing. But I really think he's social dom, and I don't know that he's doing SX as the way that I would conceive it, at least. And it's a little bit more difficult because I think he's a 1w9 core, so that's sort of anti-SX. That's it's a bit of a dick beat of a type. Just some funny quotes of his. There was no need to do any housework at all. After the first 4 years, the dirt doesn't get any worse. So yeah, he lived in this like little shithole in New York, this tiny like 1-room apartment where he didn't do any housework. He didn't like literally didn't feed himself. So to me, this is SP blind. He just decided like I don't do that. I don't eat, I don't feed myself. So he basically would just go to the pharmacy and buy like powdered Nutra shit and just eat, like drink that, and that was his food. And then he would just go to people's houses and they would feed him because he was like a fabulous hostess. So he was the social butterfly, host archetype of social sexual. He was kind of socially slutty. I know social doms are thought of to be more choosy, but I think that I don't know how much of the footage I'll show, so I don't want to have to find every element to make my point, but I think he very much was just very open for experience with other people. Like he just wanted to be with, like, have fun with other people. So yeah, this is my favorite one. Never keep up with the Joneses. Drag them down to your level. It's cheaper. Should hope to be dead by then. John Hurt is my representative here on Earth. So there's a movie called The Naked Civil Servant. It's based on his book, and it's played by John Hurt. I don't know what John Hurt's type is, but he's definitely playing like a very one-ish character. A very flamboyant one is what he's sort of doing. So anyways, Quentin Crisp has been on my read to read list for like since I was like 20. I think I found out about him through John Waters, but I still haven't read anything yet, but I'm going to now because he's fascinating. Usually I get really annoyed when I'm circling the drain on someone's type, but he's actually so interesting. How to be a virgin, how to become a virgin. I mean, that's not 1-7-ish, and maybe social sexual, I don't know. With 1 and 7, he also has a book on manners, but it's like anti-manners. It's like basically how to like utilize manners to get what you want, so that you're like being a narcissist but being like polite about it, which is super 7-y, but also with 1. So yeah, we can watch.
Here.
Oops. Fuck. These are probably all gonna start popping off. Okay, we'll just watch some of this.
It felt to be back in Britain.
Well, it was very scary. But my agent said, we lived so long that all your enemies are dead.
Also, he kind of reminds me of Gore Vidal, who is the same trifix, but he's like sexual blind. This guy's way more fabulous than Gore Vidal, but they have a sort of similar wit, cutting wit of like that was fucking funny. I've just seen it now twice, so.
So I'm here.
Now, I just wanted to say that you've always been a kind of a pioneer of self-expression. I mean, when you were a young man, you wore makeup and you dyed your hair. You were very upfront about your sexuality. What motivated you to do that?
Well, you see, I've become a national hero, but really I was just a hopeless case. And
So yeah, it's weird. It's like he's doing 4 image where he will keep doing this throughout, where he'll just take whatever they're saying and rebut it and make it like, I was tragic, I was hopeless, I was an outsider, even though he became like famous later and people love his books and they turned like his life into a movie and whatever, but he'll still identify with that. And but there's something very like kind of one-ish patrician about him. I know that like probably partly it's because he's old. There's literally no footage of him when he's under the age of like 60 or something. So this kind of sucks, but it is what it is.
I couldn't do otherwise than I did. When I was a child, I waltzed around the house in clothes belonging to my mother and my grandmother that I'd found in a box room, saying, today I am a beautiful princess. Well,
so yeah, there's almost like this tug of war, I think, that happens when you have 1 and 7, because it's like, so 1 is like self-righteous and wants to do the right thing. It wants to be, doing the good thing, like, and that's why they sort of have this like kind of posh thing, because they're like, right. But then 7 is like chaotic and wants to be hedonistic and just do whatever it wants. And 4 is the same way. 4 is self-indulgent, narcissistic as well, just like 7. So there's like this interesting thing that happens. So yeah, again, like he was like a child, like this was a long fucking time ago. Like he was like, it was dangerous for him to allow himself to be this beautiful princess. Also, the image identification of him being a beautiful princess is 4 wing 3 area, just side note.
my parents thought, I don't know.
And this was back in the 1920s and the 1930s. what kind of a gay scene was there in London at that time?
No, this part's lame. This guy's really annoying, the interviewer. Okay, so yeah, Quentin Crisp was a hooker, like an escort.
To be somebody that they could, when they by mistake met somebody from the office, they had to say, "This is my nephew." I was nobody's nephew.
So were you a male prostitute then?
Well, we all were. What could we do? How could I?
So yeah, you might be hearing this like, what do you mean? What could you do? So back then it was like, if you're like effeminate and you were out, like you're not getting hired. So because it was so bigoted. So this like he was kind of forced in some ways to go, like he was already creative, obviously, and like triple frustration is a creative type. 147 of whatever order, 704 especially is very creative. So like that's fine, but like he basically like didn't have as many options because back then it was like not okay.
Could I earn a living?
I thought that you were later on you became a life model.
Well, yes, later on. That was when I was about 34, I think. I wrote books, I illustrated books and did book covers. I taught tap dancing. I was a model in the art schools. I never.
Yeah, and like I know you can be like, that's just 70 is like 50 interests or something. It's like this was like a matter of survival, I think, and also just like lack of self-pres. Like I think he's social sexual. Like he was just sort of going with the wind, like wherever he could sort of get work, I think, because he wasn't able to build anything sustainable and he didn't have that skill. And you can see this later in life. Like he's and there's something kind of magical about self-pres blinds where they will sort of just manifest things. Like they'll just sort of the kindness of strangers, as he says, like there'll just be, it'll somehow, it's not always, of course, but sexual social, I think, is more the tragic, stacking the type that's more likely to have a tragic ending, I think, than social sexual, because sexual is like sexual social is more vulnerable. In some ways, social sexual is more able to scatter itself around and get what it needs.
I had any talent for any of these things. But what else could I do?
Did you have a talent for male prostitution though?
Oh, no, even that I did badly. You see, what men want is not someone who's a great deal of trouble and has to be wooed and has to be all that bother. The reason why men go with boys is because they don't have to woo them. They don't have to take them flowers. They don't have to tell them they love them. But you had to tell me that you loved me. You had to tell me how beautiful I was. And so
that's so cute. And I think that also speaks to 4-wing 3 and maybe 7 a little bit, but 4-wing 3 in the image center, and also probably self-pres blind, because I think like people with self-pres often view this is reductive and it might not apply to you, but can be like more bodies, you know what I mean, where it's more like body count, body slam, like doesn't, I mean, social sexual can be chaotic and whatever, but I think that there's like less of like, I think self-preservation as an instinct is more transactional with the body, and like social social is more identity. Like it's more like me, I'm a personality, I'm a magical creature. And like the body is just sort of this other part of it, and that's not how they, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm explaining myself well, but
of course it was a waste of time.
How did the sort of mechanics of it work? I mean, where did you hang around? Did you hang around?
yeah, this guy is the worst. It's probably just like a 6 or something. Okay, so this is, so again, like he's not young in any of these things. Oh wait, is this what I want to? Yeah, okay.
This room is not only a room in a boarding house, but also a ward, a private ward in a home for incorrigibles. And then again, it's a cell.
Yeah, so he's sort of like, we typed John Waters 1-wing 274 social sexual, and although John Waters, actually his house was very nice, but if I recall correctly, but fuck. So is that gonna fuck my typing? Shit. Well, I'm still gonna go, I'm just gonna stick with what I have right now. Maybe John Waters is not self-pres blind, so that might be one we have to revisit. But I'm pretty sure that Quentin Crisp here is self-pres blind. So what was I gonna say? Oh, but I started trying to like think about this when I was watching it yesterday, because they both have this thing of like putting themselves in with the degenerates, and it's almost like teaching the degenerates. It's almost like showing you how to be a good degenerate, which I think is like this one. It's like you have these two degenerate type 7 and 4, and then you have this non-degenerate core, which is like the right way to do things, the proper way to do things. And so it's so funny. And also I think that there's something with superego types, probably 1 in 6 more than anything, whereas this like self-punishing, self-denying aspect, not self-denying in the self-erasing way, but like in this sort of like especially with 1, it's like I'm gonna withhold because it makes me a good boy. I will not succumb to the hedonism. Like even with self-pres missing, I think there's still going to be that like overriding function where even if you get like a self-pres last 1, they're probably not going to, and a 7 and a 4, they're probably not going to be all that hedonistic. You know what I mean? Even if maybe at the beginning they will be a little bit, but it's like of their life. But I feel like there's this auto thing that will kick in where they have to be kind of more towing their own personal standards line, where they're not going to go off the rails the way like a 7 would. And 7s are more scattered in general, and 7s are more prone to just succumbing to like their whims, especially without self-pres. It's like, who cares?
And here I've remained for 30 years, and whatever has gone by in the outer world has passed me by. But I think if anyone said to me, if you go on like this, life will pass you by, I would reply, thank God for that. I nearly got mixed up in the beastly thing.
But I think this is the thing too with frustrations, and he's triple frustration, is that it's just this constant dissatisfaction with everything. So he's doing it in each center. So in the gut center, it's like, this world is not right. I'm the one who's right. I must be like showing the world how to be right. What is the way to do things? And then in 4, it's like in the heart space, the image space, like I'm not, like I'm broken, I'm dysfunctional, people don't understand, I'm different, I'm an alien. One of his books is called Resident Alien. I mean, it's a play on words, but and he does have that identification with that. And then in 7, it's like, I don't have what I need. I never have enough of what I need. But he seems like, the other thing too is that he's very poised. So this is why I entertain social self-pres, but I think it's just because he's a 1.
My landlady is the last saint left alive. This is the only house in the world which is run for the benefit of the lodgers. We all do exactly as we please. The price you pay is that, of course, you live on the coconut matting level. I don't ever shop now because I found I needn't. My clothes are given to me. In fact, I'm a sort of one-man Oxfam. But food, it was more of a problem until I discovered you could buy stuff at a chemist, which you could eat without ever buying anything from food shops. No.
This seems like a self-pres last life hack to me. Like food is always a problem. So the things, because it's boring, and if it's like your last instinct, you don't really want to have to fucking think about it. And he's like here for socializing and playing hostess and going to parties and being invited to things and having a personality. It's not the self-pres things are not for me, darling. And I don't clean, even though he's a 1. And the thing is, if you have 1 and you have self-pres, you're gonna be clean. Like I think it's just, I think, prove me wrong, I think, but I think but 1's going to have a ego identification more into the social realm if he's social dom, which he is, and that's where he does have it. And he also references God a lot, and like it could have been a sign of the time, but he talks in a way where it's like he's always watching. Like,
I don't bother anymore. Buy this stuff and you mix it up. It's sort of a whitish powder, and you mix it up. until it's the color of wolfmuir. And it tastes like wolfmuir too. But it's full of vitamins and full of protein, and you don't have to bother ever again. The great barrier between me and the outer world is my appearance. And my appearance is mild now.
I'm making this up, but I could weirdly see ones and maybe even fives having some gross thing with their fingernails, long fingernails,
Compared with what?
like real fingernails, like there being some weird. I don't know why I think that.
It was like 40 years ago when my hair was hennaed, my eyelids were gold, my fingernails and my toenails were gold, and I was blind with mascara and dumb with lipstick. Sometimes it led to my being beaten up, mauled about, and sometimes actually beaten up. But this, of course, I had to expect.
Yeah, and so this sort of where I'm seeing like also 1 and 4, like he's kind of self-martyring, and he's doing it. Well, let him, maybe he explains it here. I've watched so much stuff that I don't even know what's what anymore.
My way of going on is a protest, and the beating up is a counter-protest. It's people's way of saying that they don't accept the way that I am.
Yeah, and you can argue, oh, it's social self-pres. I just really don't think that he has way too much sparkle and flair, and he's not a 7. So I think it's still the one protest. It's like, I'm showing people how to live. I'm going to be the example. I'm going to walk around. I'm going to show people like that it's, oh, I'm okay. Like that other people are okay to be like this. Like he's martyring himself basically. And I think that that feeds all the frustration parts of him. So it feeds his gut knowing the right way to be and like living that. And then 4, where he's like exiled from society, kind of, he's like this freak, you know.
Of course, some of the things that happen to me in the street are not savage, they're just sad. At least they're sad to me. They reveal a nature more peculiar, more lonely than my own. On one occasion, I was on the bus and I looked down at the bus stop, and there was one of those Canadians or Australians or New Zealanders, the man with the hat, you know, that hat, and he got on the bus. And looking in the window of the bus, it was nighttime, I could see what was going on behind me. And he came and sat down, and then he stood behind me, and I thought, I wonder what's going to happen. And he produced a comb from his pocket, and as the bus swayed on its journey all the way down to Knightsbridge, he combed my hair. I never said a word, I never turned, and neither did he. And afterwards, people said he was drunk, which is absurd, because he could understand the architecture of my hair, which is more than I can. But the wall, of course, was a hat.
Yeah, I think he has like his real hair, fake hair, at least 2 things of fake hair. Part of his died. I don't even know what's happening on his head.
The time, and everything was much, much better. First of all, people were kinder because they thought that God might be watching them. And then it was darker. And everyone, of course, wore the same clothes that I wore. In fact, a policeman once came up to me in the street and said, "You can't go about like that." And I said, "Why not?" I was dressed in trousers. And he said, "Because you look exactly like a woman." And I said, "I'm wearing trousers." And he said, "Well, women wear trousers." And I said, "I can't help it if other people are eccentric." And he went away. Well, you must understand with everything I say that I'm speaking, first of all, for myself and then for a group. I'm a minority within a minority. I'm an effeminate homosexual. And for people like me, the dream, the hope, the ambition is to win and to keep the love of a real man. And of course, the essence of a real man is that he does not fall in love with people of his own sex.
Yeah, and this is him getting like, I know that this is sort of a problem, but or was, but it also seems like a frustration fixation. It's like he's never gonna be totally happy. Like he's never gonna find the right guy. He's never gonna have like his soulmate. He's never gonna be able to have what he wants, which is the frustration problem.
Therefore, it's insoluble, it's unanswerable. This doesn't prevent homosexuals from hammering away at the problem. They simply become more feverish. They pile the makeup on thicker. They sway more from side to side. They camp more outrageously. And of course, the more they do this, the more the desired object recedes. I would definitely like to have been a woman, because I feel, whether rightly or wrongly, that then everything would have fallen into place.
Yeah, it's always like, what's wrong? Just if only this, if only that. Like, and I mean, you could argue this is some SP complaints, but I think it's more for him on like an identity level. And if you look at how he holds his body, I mean, maybe not there so much, but he's got this very like, it's like very one-ish. Although he seems like tired there and sad. Although he's like at least 60 here. Just keep that in mind. Fuck, I know he says some good stuff somewhere in here, but I don't remember where it is.
I couldn't reply. I'm enjoying myself, Lord. But if there's someone with me, I go.
Oh, here's
And
some
then he knows
super ego stuff.
Because I'm worried about what God would say if he found me in the movies. You see, if he were to plunge his arm down through the roof of the Odeon cinema and say, "And you, Chris, what are you doing here?" I couldn't reply. I mean,
Oh, he might be talking about like peep show theater.
enjoying myself, Lord. But if there's someone with me, I go. And then he knows I've committed an act of self-sacrifice.
Can you tell me about an argument you had with a drunk in the street?
So that's more one. Doesn't necessarily rule out 1w2 for me though. I don't think he's 1w2. I think he's 1w9. Fuck my life. I don't want to record this for a goddamn third time, and I don't want to edit this. There's something a little bit 1w2-ish about his face though. F 1w2 or 1w9. Pretty sure 7w6 head, 4w3 heart. He kind of looks like 1w9, 9w1 at these old photos of him. It's kind of got that like sad boy thing where when I was first looking at this, I was like, is this 4w3? Very like sad aristocrat. Oh, we'll keep watching. If I can find it.
You see.
Not editing this.
And he said, "You mean you go with men for money?" And your reply was, "Well, possibly. Does that mean that you've been a male prostitute?"
I had I think around this mark, because maybe there's something around here.
You're getting old, Quentin. But you might live another 30 years, mightn't you?
Well, modern science is so unkind that I could live for 30 years without anyone even noticing. Wouldn't be remarkable in any way.
Yeah, has to be remarkable.
And this, of course, is the great problem. This is why I think there should be a ministry of death, and that they should make up their minds how long people are to live. And when they've decided that, then you would just stay in your home and a notice would come, like your income tax form, and it would say, "Would you kindly call at the forgetting chamber of the town hall on September the 25th, and the note will be your 65th birthday," or whatever it is. And then a plain van would come, and you would step in and you would go away, and everything would be marvelous. You could apportion your income.
We all just go get to. I mean, I do think there are some evil ones out there, so this makes sense because one's an efficiency competency type. So it's like, yes, we'll just get rid of the humans now; they're a nuisance. Obviously, he's joking, but you know, it's a frustration complaint too. It's like it's not fun anymore. Why bother now? I'm ugly now. I can't have the life that I want. Why bother going on?
I found A very moving book, and B a salutary book in terms of many of the things it revealed to me about myself.
His unimpressed face. I think this is to me is the face of triple frustration.
It ends on a very depressing note, personally, and yet throughout the book there are flashes of insight, which are
Yeah, and I'm just adding because he does have some body things that not the self-presbyterian will not ever speak of anything with the body, but he's a gut type, so that's just worth noting.
humorous in nature. I'm wondering if really you are as depressed as the book seems to indicate at the end, because there seems to be a bubbling sense of humor that comes in again and again in the book.
Well, it's not exactly that I'm depressed. It's that it is the story of total failure, total humiliation. And therefore, it would be unwise to sort of perk up at the end and make it and give it a happy ending of any kind.
So this is some real 4 shit. I was like, this is when I was like, wait, is he a 4? But I think it's because he's like, in his mind, he's like espousing this greater vision, but he's also like self-flagellating. It's some sort of like 1 self-humiliation with 4 like just flagellating misery kind of thing. I think he's probably 4-ing 3 second, which kind of adds like a dourness to him. And also, not that 7s can't write dark stuff at all, but because they do, but yeah, I think like if he's writing a story of his life and there's no greater message, actually that makes me think 1w9 over 1w2, but where it is like there's the greater message is more just like I'm a failure. He's doing his image through his 1, like this is not coming together as well as I was hoping it would be on the floor.
I mean, the life of anyone who lives to be 60 cannot really have a happy ending, since the happy time is earlier than this. That's almost inevitable.
Now,
Again, frustration. It's just like, back then it was wonderful. Now it's horrible. But back then it was horrible too.
there is a sense in which I would think at this point, you would probably be in a position to advise in the present situation, people who had your problems, who would have had your problems 40 years ago, who now have them in the 1960s. Is there anything that you would advise them to do to some extent obviate the kind of failures you feel in yourself?
Well, part of my failure, of course, is something that won't happen to other people, because the failure was social. When there is no opprobrium, when there is no humiliation heaped on homosexuals from outside, they will cease to have to confirm or deny. Unfortunately, of course, toleration has come in a form that is slightly insulting. That is to say, one imagined the message when it came would read, "Forgive us for having for so long allowed our prejudices to blind us to your true worth, and cross our unworthy threshold with your broad-minded feet." Instead, the message now reads, "Oh, come in, the place is a mess, you'll love it."
Absolute disgust on his face. He's just so unimpressed. Triple frustration to the max. This is a very 4-3 social disdain, just total absolute disgust. You get what you want and it's not good enough. But that's also 1 because he's so self-righteous. Fuck. It's like he's also individuating himself as he's doing this message. It's like, well, I'm not like them. They won't have this problem because this is my problem, but I'm still teaching you a lesson.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. You also make a point of what many people are saying about legislation in terms of racial tolerance, that there is very little point in legislation which doesn't carry people along with it in terms of persuasion.
Oh, this gets into some boring stuff now. But oh, I didn't watch all of it though. We'll see. He smiles here. Maybe he's got a fun little story for us. But he's definitely dropping out of the 7 in social sexual here.
They tend to be concerned with themselves first, and then their group, their family, their friends, and rather than with the world. A world grasp, I think, is unusual in anyone who's totally outside. You have to come in first and be with the people, and then go out and tell them what to do. If you've never known them, you can't really do this.
And there has been a tendency not to want
Oh,
enough.
forget this one. Fuck. Oh, this is funny.
They were worried by my unemployability. What was I to do? So when I went into the world, I wrote books, I illustrated books and did book covers. I taught tap dancing, remaining one tap ahead of the students because I was learning it while I was teaching it.
There's a little bit of 7 right there. And also he's not judging himself for doing that either. He doesn't care.
And I was a model in the art schools. I had no ability for any of those things. But what else could I do? Because it may be true that artists adopt a flamboyant appearance, but it's also true that people who look funny get stuck with the arts. And
So yeah, he's like kind of just like keeps separating himself. Like this is where I started wondering if he was actually a 4, but it's just so much 1-ish. Because he does keep going back to his image and like separating and like, well, yes, it's true. Like I was an artist, but I wasn't like other artists. I had to be an artist because I was just so rejected from society. I was just so different and unlovable and disgraceful to everybody around me. And I had to do it. So there's the one part of it is like, I had to do it. It was the right thing to do. It was the only thing I could do. And also one's repress anger, and he's very poised and he's very cutting in all of these things. He's never like splashing out and like it's just all acerbic kind of shit. It's some quotes, yeah, like if at first you don't succeed, failure may be your style. That's fucking hilarious. Life was a funny thing that happened to me on the way to the grave. So I think that like ones are pretty serious types, but I think that like with a 4 hanging on it, it's going to make it like a real kind of a bummer on some level. Treat all disasters as if they were trivialities, but never treat a triviality as if it were a disaster. I don't think you can really be proud of being gay because it isn't something you've done. You can only be proud of not being ashamed. It's just like a lot of like judgment kind of stuff. Some roughs are really queer and some queers are really rough. He also does a lot of the 7 wing 6, I would say, language tricks, like a lot of these little slippery language tricks that I've noticed with people with 7 and 4 and 7 and 9. I think he's 1 wing 9, so that would make him 9 7 4 adjacent. Like he's doing these little like sort of language fripperies and flipperies and slipperies. You fall out of your mother's womb, you crawl across open country under fire and drop into your grave. It's also very dramatic and like the young always have the same problem. How to rebel and conform at the same time. They have now solved this by defying their parents and copying one another. Of course, he's got to throw in that disdain for them. None of them are original. Of course, I lie to people, but I lie altruistically for our mutual good. The lie is the basic building block of good manners. So this is more like 7-1 stuff where it's like 7 gives you license to do whatever you want without like recourse. But then the one's like got to make it proper. It's like, no, but this is the right. It's altruistic for me to lie. It's like 7 self-rationalize and 1 self-rationalize too, about kind of different things. And I think together you got someone who's like able to probably justify just about fucking anything. No, oh, this is my favorite one of all. Never keep up with the Joneses. Drag them down to your level. It's cheaper. Did I already say this quote? I don't know. I'm literally going fucking insane trying to type in. So yeah, this needs to end soon. And I'm sorry because he deserves a lot more spaciousness to experience him, but I can't do this again. So if you're into him, then I suggest you watch a bunch of stuff or read some of his books.
that happened.
Or watch the movie.
And I came to America when I was 72. I mean, it was a terrible risk.
I mean, that's pretty funny. Also, like, I can't see like a self-pres one being like, you know what I mean, like a self-pres even person at all. But 72, I'm just gonna go move to America because that's where the fabulous people are. In New York, I'm going to go to parties, and he did go to parties. Look, like we got the Andy Warhol in the background. He became friends with Andy Warhol. He got invited to all kinds of things. So you know, he was living his best life in his 70s and 80s, and that's probably why he lived so fucking long, because then he like started his one-man show and you know, became like this little cult icon. But of course he was doing it for the people. Gotta remember where that fucking video is where he talks about that, because that really sells the wine.
I for a job at the age of 72, but I've never worked in the 18 years that I've lived in America.
And it's funny because, so here's the thing, you could argue this is anti-one, because this is what was going through my mind when I was like, he can't be a one, can he? Because it's a competency type, right? And it's one, so it's like doing what's right, blah, blah, blah. And by society's rules, it is, you should have a job. But then I started thinking, like, Ayn Rand famously was like anti-work, pro-capitalism, and she also got her social security, because I know that was like, I love Ayn Rand, I love her. And you know, people have been like, well, do you know that she said this, and then she got like social security? Like, to me, I'm like, yes, so fuck the government, take their money, like they fucking owe you, they owe you. So I think that there is probably like, I don't know what her head fix is or her heart fix or whatever. I love her though. I should type her. But I can see there being this one self-righteousness, plus if you have the 7 hedonists who 7-4, they don't, 7-4s don't want to fucking work, okay? They just want to make stuff. They just want to be fabulous and make stuff. So the one will auto justify like the, well, I simply couldn't work because I was a freak, and so this was all I could do.
I've lived like Mademoiselle Dubois on the kindness of strangers.
I also noticed there's like this sort of, with the 147 try, there's kind of this like, not like evilness, but there's this sort of like, where it's almost villainous as they get older, where they kind of start to sound a little devilish, and like I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like the one self-justification just like intensifies, or if I wish I could remember which video it was. Maybe is this one?
I was nobody's nephew.
Oh, here we go again with this one.
Listen, man, you describe yourself as an effeminate homosexual. Does that mean you wanted to be a woman?
Originally, yes, I would like to have been a woman. And now that you can have the operation practically on the national health, it would be quite different from me.
Would you have had that operation?
Oh, yes, if you could have waved a wand over my head and turned me into a woman, my whole life would have been self-evident. It would all have been of a piece. I was a hopeless case from the day I was born.
Well, what do you mean hopeless? Do you mean obviously effeminate, or?
Obviously a misfit, obviously effeminate. By the time I was...
Oh my God, he just talks about the same thing in every video. Fuck, there was one video where he, oh, I don't want to have to look for it. You're free to look for it. You're free to look for it yourself if you don't like my typing. But he does talk about how he how basically he was like trying to show people the way to live. Like he felt like he was sort of doing a public service in some ways, like trotting down the street in his fabulous outfits, like showing people this is a way to live and it's fine, and like it's safe to, like, people like me aren't doing anything wrong. And so he was like leading by example, like, and he does talk about like sort of one-ish topics where he has ego, and like even though he's doing these like, whoa, mom, but it's like he's still intentionally martyring himself in some like ways where he's wanting to show people a way to live. But yeah, so this is like he's an interesting type, and I feel like there's maybe an interesting discussion to be had about one in the future, just regarding like how it actually shows up for people, because it's sort of a mystery type in some ways, because ones create their own moral code, so it's doesn't always maybe look like one, so you're trying to like look for other tells, and I feel like you can see it in his body very clearly, like he's got that upright, proper especially with four wing threes, super snobby. But a lot of other stuff I was reading about him and watching was that like he put his phone in the phone book so that he would get invited out, because he wanted to meet all kinds of strangers, and he would go to people's houses, a different person's house every night of the week. He'd go entertain them, and then he'd go get fed. And I think in one of the interviews he says that he didn't drink, or he makes like, oh no, I don't drink, I don't have sex, I abstain, I abstain. But like I think but then other people have said in things where, oh, when he would get drunk he would say all kinds of stuff. So I think that I think that there is this sort of lying to the self that might happen a little bit with one. And anyways, he's an intriguing character. I don't feel like I did him justice with this video, but I just really wanted to get it over with now so that it's done. Quentin Crisp, rest in peace. You are an icon. You are still an icon, inimitable, never to be topped. I will compare him for 1 second though. If you look at Prince, who I think is a 471, they have a kind of similar actually aesthetic in some ways. And then David Bowie, who's a 3-wing 471, so he's adjacent to the 471. He also has like a similar kind of fashion sense about him, and they both have SX. And who else? Jordan Peterson's a 147, maybe 174, sexual blind. And Quentin Crisp is way more charisma than I actually like Jordan Peterson, so not agreeing with the haters on that, but you can see like the difference right there, actually, like with sexual and not with sexual, like there's just this extra flourish and attention to beauty and presentation, I think. And especially with 4-wing 3 second, I believe that Quentin Crisp is social sexual 1-wing 9, 4-wing 3, 7-wing 6. And actually I like the idea of 1-wing 9 because 9 is sort of the shadow then, and he does berate himself for being a slob, being lazy, but I mean he clearly isn't in other areas. And I think that when we're unhealthy, we can swing into our wings too. And so if he's just like letting his place fall to shit, which I could see being 947 adjacent, just not caring about practical matters. He's probably secretly hoping that someone would just come and like clean his house for him after he entertained them or something. Anyways, I don't know. Hopefully this typing's vaguely accurate. I'm sure if you don't agree with me, I'll hear about it in the comment section. Au revoir.